This is a case of who's who today.
You got a switch there that says on and off.
I'd like to call the March 20, 2012 meeting of the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners to order. And as always, we'll start with our Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all.
Thank you, and I will give our invocation if you'll join me in prayer. God, thank you for this beautiful place, these wonderful people, veterans, students, parents, everyone who is part of Buncombe County. Thank you for the educators and leaders who train and teach our children the values and morals that make our society glue. Thank you for the people who work as stewards of our land, protecting the wonderful farmland, mountaintops, and open areas that we all enjoy and make this such a special place to live. Replace the despair that some people feel with hope, distrust with confidence, sadness with joy, emptiness with a sense of fullness, and sadness with joy. Grant us the wisdom, compassion, and understanding to do what's best for our community. And thank you for this chance to serve and take care of the people, the land, and the opportunities that Buncombe County stands for in the past and in the future. Amen. In accordance with our Code of Ethics adopted by the Board, it's the duty of every board member to avoid any actual or apparent conflict of interest. Does any board member know of any potential or actual conflict of interest with any matter coming before our board today?
No, sir.
Then we'll proceed. Is there a motion to follow the agenda as it has been published?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion by Commissioner Peterson, a second by Vice Chair Stanley to follow the I was about to say the menu, the agenda as proposed. I think that ice cream we had. We'll tell about that.
I didn't have any ice cream.
He ate yours.
We'll tell about that in a minute. I have proof here on my paper here where we have a smudge. Then a motion second to follow the agenda as is published. Any discussion of that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion carries 5-0, which includes adopting the consent agenda. Next, we have Commissioner Peterson will give the Women's Veterans History Day presentation to Cynthia Breifogel and Sharon West. Both with Cynthia's with the VA Medical. She's the VA Medical Center Director, and Sharon is the Women Veteran Program Manager. And they do a wonderful job. We've been out there a few times, and we love what you're doing at the VA. So good to have you ladies here.
And a special privilege since Sharon is one of us, and we appreciate the great job she did with Buncombe County. She's still one of us because she is in charge of the women's services at the Veterans Hospital, and it's great to see you, Sharon. Before I read the proclamation, if I could maybe not remind folks, but tell folks that we have expanded our veteran services here in Buncombe County. In fact, we now have a staff of 5 folks in Buncombe County located on College Street, to help the folks who are returning as veterans here. I know that you read from newspaper and other publications that North Carolina has one of the highest numbers of returning veterans, and it behooves us as county leaders and elected officials to make sure that these folks are taken care of when they do return home. And we do a great job, and it's great that we have the great facility that we have, our Otine Hospital, so it's great to be here. And also a shout out to the city folks, because at this new facility they've given our veterans, people who have come in for that services, free parking. So that's just another way that we are working together to make sure that everyone who needs services here in Buncombe County is taken care of. So it is definitely my privilege to read this proclamation from the County of Buncombe, proclamation of Women's Veterans History Day. And I've got to interject here that I remember I was so proud as a young child knowing that my aunt served in the armed forces. And that was a rarity when I was growing up, but I remember how proud I was of her. So whereas the month of March is nationally designated as National Women's History Month, which recognizes women veterans who have served in the armed forces in various roles since the late 1700s. And whereas there are 8.1 million women's veterans in the United States, which is the fastest growing segment of the veterans population in the United States. And whereas women veterans, through their selfless service, have strengthened our communities, our families, and our nation. And whereas everyone is invited to join in this annual celebration, remembrance, and recognition of the contributions, achievements, and sacrifices of our women's veterans. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of Commissioners for the County of Buncombe as follows: that March the 23rd, 2012, be and is hereby proclaimed Women's Veterans History Day in Buncombe County. That all Buncombe County citizens are encouraged to recognize the contributions and challenges of women's veterans. That this proclamation be effective upon its adoption. Mr. Chairman, I move adoption of this proclamation.
Second.
Been a motion by Commissioner Peterson, a second by Vice Chair Stanley. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The proclamation is adopted by a 5-0 vote.
Now it's my pleasure to welcome Cynthia and Sharon to the podium.
Commissioner, thank you very much for this honor. We deeply appreciate it. We're working very closely with General Turner's and staff. In fact, 4 of them were at the hospital yesterday for most of the day, touring and learning about our projects and working together with one another to provide care. 17% of the people in the armed forces today are women, so our job is only going to grow stronger. Also, yesterday we learned that more vocations are open up to women in the military, so that will increase even more the number of women veterans that we have the honor of taking care of. Thank you for this proclamation and for your support as we provide excellent health care to America's heroes. Sharon, did you?
And as I echo our director, I just want to say that as I look back on data from 1995, it showed that we had 750 female veterans accessing medical care at the VA Medical Center, and in 2007 it went to 1,200, and now we're serving over 1,600 female veterans. So we're growing steadily. We want to make sure that we continue to focus on quality care delivery to our female veterans and make sure that they are accepted and welcomed and respected, and to make sure that people know that in any case, if you see a female in the hallways of the VA, it's not necessarily a wife, it's not necessarily a mother only or a sister only, but it could be the veteran. So to respect her accordingly. So thank you so much for this resolution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's give a hand. Next item we have is a report from the Land Conservation Advisory Board. And I see Chairman Albert Sneed and members of the board. If y'all want to come up also, we'd like you. You've done so much. I see Carl, Nancy, and Karen. If y'all will all come up and stand, we just appreciate. This is a board that we are mighty proud of.
County manager report.
One of many boards, but this one, y'all certainly taken the ball and run with it since your creation.
County manager report.
That was good, Carl.
Carl Silverstein has been very instrumental in making a lot of these things happen, as you know. Christy Malier's an experienced realtor, knows a lot about big tracts and land, and she's been very helpful and an active member of the committee. Nancy Niels Nelson, if you want a wedding organized or anything organized, she can organize you. She's been organizing us very well. And, of course, Karen Craig Nolan has been very helpful, particularly with the riparian easements we consider. Is this thing teed up to show you where's the program?
There you go.
It's up.
Okay. You started this program with bipartisan support in 2004. And the county leadership has done a lot to get other people interested and active in creating land conservation easements. There's some interesting trends. In the midst of a recession, pretty bad recession, there were 8 easements recorded this year, and the county was only involved in 3. Now, that hadn't been the case in the past. You were involved in most of the easements that were recorded. But what you're seeing is the interest and appreciation for these types of gifts to the community, that they're coming from other places, and they're not even asking you to help with any money at all. Let's see the next slide. I'm going to run through some of them. Here's one in East Buncombe up above the watershed. I don't think that cost you anything. It was 37 acres adjoining the Asheville watershed. Carson Conservation Easement. What's the next one? On Jim's Branch Road, you did participate in this one. It took a long time to put it together. It's 114 acres. That was recorded this year, and the county did help with that. What's the next one? Laurel Ridge land purchases. These were all 500 acres, 492 acres that Southern Appalachian Highland Conservancy purchased. But we count them because it's protected land in Buncombe County. And what's the next one? This is probably one of the most significant easements that have been done. You participated in this. This is all along the top of Little Pisgah Mountain, 474 acres. It's right in the key focus areas that we talked about back in 2004. Next slide. Here's some views from that easement. Of course, there's a big bald on Little Pisgah up there. And what's the next slide? There's another view of it. And you can see this was the McKay family that gave this conservation easement. It's adjacent to 2 others. So now you're seeing that they're beginning to get tied together. And there's some others out there that we're talking to that might add to this protection of that high mountain range there. Next slide. And this is the view that's being protected on the Hickory Nut Gap conservation easements as they're beginning to spread out. There have been some more, there may be some more in the works on those. Next one. Snowball Mountain, this was another Southern Appalachian Highlands Conservancy purchase, 90 acres out in Reams Creek. Didn't cost the county anything. It's in the focus areas. It's the land that you said that you wanted to protect back in 2004. Next. Here's the Long Branch Environmental Education Center. They finally put an easement, 622 acres on that land that they've owned out there for some time. I believe that cost nothing to the county. Next one. North Turkey Creek at 45 acres. Total in Buncombe County, 33 acres in Haywood County, up along that ridge, which is adjacent to many of the lands that have been protected out in Sandy Mush. Next slide. Robinson Cove, Southern Appalachian Highlands Conservancy purchased 248 acres. No cost to the county. That's in Sandy Mush, adjacent to many of the other areas that are protected. Next. So you just start driving out toward Weaverville and you're looking over to the left along those mountains out there. There are lots of that mountain range that are protected for wildlife, natural habitat, and views. Next. So here's where we were in 2004. You can see there were a few easements out in Sandy Mush. There were a couple up in Barnardsville, and there were a couple in Fairview, and the rest was all watersheds in the National Park. Next slide. This is now. So you're beginning to see it's starting to fill in. These easements down in the southeast part of the county tied in those on Little Pisgah, and they're beginning to touch each other and spread along the mountains, and the same out to the west. And also we have one out in Candler that's substantial, and that's adjacent to the Forest Service. Next slide. I have a little problem with these numbers because I've been coming up here telling you that in 2004 there were 51,000 acres protected, and Debbie tells me, well, we left out the Parkway. So maybe it is 57, but I'm going to go back and look at the acres. But if these numbers are correct, you're adding about 2,000 acres a year. And when we started this, Wake County said, well, we want to protect 12% of the county. We started out with about 12% of the county protected, and now we're getting up close to 14%. Next slide. So the county only had money in 2 projects this year. There were 6 with private money. Some of them had some state or federal grants. The work was all done by nonprofit staff with no county money, and those are the additions in the middle of a recession. So I would say, to recap, all of these gifts are real gifts, even the ones, and I want to keep repeating this, even the ones where people got some money. When they walked out of the closing room, their net worth was less. And what we found out is that people who make gifts like this really like to be thanked. And so we've just started inviting the people who gave 3 or 4 years ago to come to the recognition event every year. And they appreciate it. And they go out and they talk to their friends about what it's like to be thanked for making a gift to the community like this. So we're setting up for a recognition event in June, possibly June 21st. I know you all are busy, but to the extent you can come, look them in the eye and say thank you, that's real important. And we've seen people that are friends of people that made conservation easements add to conservation easements, and so that's where we build the leadership and keep this moving. In the first report, I made a recommendation to you that you keep this on a short string. You make this committee report every year, and if they're not doing anything, fire them. That's where it ought to stay. And the other thing I want to caution is a lot of this enthusiasm builds up for conservation easements. It's one thing to put a conservation easement in perpetuity on the side of a mountain or the top of the mountain. It's another thing to take land that could be productive in the future out of the economy, where people might need to have a job or live. So that's a caution going forward. It's been a pleasure to be associated with this program. If you have any questions, we'll answer them.
We just, Albert, I would just say that I remember when this started, I think Bill and I were on the board, and there was a real concern that this would never get off the ground because there would never be the trust that this is not some type of taking or some type of government intrusion into their lives. And because of you and your board and the hard work these folks have been doing, you've developed that trust and recognition that this is a voluntary program, but it goes way beyond their individual property. It's kind of a way of thinking, a philosophy of our county, and a philosophy that you've brought to the folks that have these lands. And I will always, we don't always agree on things, Albert, we know that.
Well, you're lawyers, you know.
But we agree on this one, and you have taken this and run with it with the committee and the group, and I just thank you for all the future generations that will have this land forever and be able to enjoy it and look out and say, these folks thought ahead a little bit. They had a little bit of vision to do the right thing before everything got developed and just built up. So we appreciate you developing that trust, and you in particular made a difference because you went out there and you told people this is not taking away your land. This is something you're doing voluntarily, but we need your help.
Well, thank you very much, and we look forward to your continued support for another year.
Any other questions or comments?
Good job.
Thank you.
Good job, good job.
Okay, let's do county manager's report next. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, one thing before we get to the school thing, just talking about school. And we'll skip good news too. I think there's some good news, particularly about schools. We've got two of our schools, fine universities, that are in the Sweet 16. I think that's phenomenal. One of them wears red, and one of them wears something similar to what our chairman has on there, whatever that color is down there. But I'm proud they're there. I wish we'd have got 4, but it didn't work out. But my eyes are red from watching them, and I'll continue watching them long as I hope I see them plumb to the end. Either one, hope to see them play each other, but that won't probably happen there in the whatever bracket. But I think we need congratulations to the Wolfpack and the Tar Heels for sure.
Sir. Thank you, Vice Chair. You're exactly right. Okay. Resolution declaring our intent for the county to reimburse itself for capital expenditures occurred in connection with improvements to Asheville Middle School and Dixon Elementary School from proceeds of certain tax-exempt obligations to be executed in 2012. What does that mean?
It's hard to say that fast, isn't it?
Thank you, Dr.
Mr. Chairman,
Green.
Commissioners, thank you. For several months, we've met with city schools and talked about their capital needs, and I think all of us have toured Isaac Dixon and Asheville Middle School, and in most cases, Asheville High School. Over the last couple of years, we've issued $6.4 million in qualified school construction bonds that we were able to get through the stimulus funds to make improvements primarily at the high school. And after all of this, there's been the determination made that we need to replace Isaac Dixon and Asheville Middle Schools. And we've reached a point where it's time to start that planning, to figure out how do we need to program these buildings, what do the facilities need to look like, and just how do we go from here. So tonight we are asking you to approve the reimbursement resolution. Fairly simply, that says we need to go get some money. We need to spend some money. And when we're ready to finance these projects, we want to pay ourselves back with that. So we will be submitting an application to the state to obtain $2 million in lottery and ADM funds that traditionally have always gone to the School Capital Commission Fund, and that's the $2 million we will be using to do the planning process. And planning for the facilities the size of these two schools usually take from 12 to 18 months. And at the end of the planning period, we'll know exactly what we need, what it's going to house, what kind of programs we're going to have, what it's going to look like, so that we're very able then to go to the public and say, this is exactly what we need for the replacement of both of these schools. Now, I would tell you, it has been truly a pleasure. You know, when you're working through difficult situations, it's been really a pleasure to work with Superintendent Alan Johnson, Board Chair Gene Bell, and the Vice Chair Al Whitesides to bring you this proposal tonight. We've talked at length. I think we're all in agreement. This is how we need to proceed so we can get this planning started. And with your approval tonight, we'll be ready to start that planning process, which will involve finding an architect and moving forward with and coming back with plans in a few months. So, gentlemen, anything? If you have any questions, any of us are happy to answer them.
So we're talking $2 million here alone?
That's what we think
Planning.
it will take to plan for the two
Okay.
schools.
So $2 million, we pay that back when we eventually do the bond or however we finance it.
Mm-hmm.
And we move the ball down the road so we finally get some much needed facilities replaced at Asheville Middle and Isaac Dixon.
Mr. Chairman, I move we pass the resolution and get it cracking.
Second.
There's a second. There's a motion by Vice Chair Stanley, a second by Commissioner Jones. I would like to take a little bit of public comment today on this one. So let's see, Chairman Bell, why don't you, and Superintendent Johnson, and then I think Vice President Dykes would also like to speak on this, and Vice Chair, yes.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank Ms. Green for her listening and having us go back and forth. This has been a very, very difficult process to try and get people to understand our needs. We were obviously elated that you all have identified those two schools that we want our kids in the city to have adequate facilities and continue both with our city and county school systems to be the best in the state. So from my perspective, that's what I want to do is thank you. And again, We've been to each one of you all, and we've been to Wanda's office probably 10 times more than we've been to yours. And she's always been receptive and been very courteous and very professional. So I want to thank you publicly for all your efforts with that. So.
I would like to echo what Gene said and thank all of you, Wanda and all of the commissioners, for the support for our children. And that's what it's all about. And I would like to say, and I think I can say this for me and Gene, as we start the last year of, this will be our 8th year on the school board, and we will rotate off at the end of March next year. But it's one thing that I want to commend all of you and even the commissioners before you, because we have got nothing but good support from the county commissioners for our schools. And it's a pleasure to live in a county where we have leaders who do understand that our future is at stake with our children. And again, thank you. And Wanda, we'll stay out of your office now for a while.
Thank you, Vice Chair Whiteside.
Commissioners, again, wow, March 20th is a great day for Asheville City Schools, and again, I would like to thank each of you and for visiting our schools and touring and seeing some of the needs that we have. And I think seeing is believing. I think Vice Chairman Stanley said that as walking through some of that. But this is a big day for us. We're certainly appreciative of these funds. We will utilize this $2 million and begin the process for architect studies and hopefully bring you back some real numbers and exactly what we need with input from our parents. And I'd like to recognize we have a number of parents that are here today. Please stand. And board members here. We have principals here from Asheville Middle and Dixon. Please stand. Recognize folks that are here in support of the work that we're trying to do. So, again, on behalf of Asheville City Schools, I want to thank the Commissioner and my colleague, Wanda Green, who pulled rabbit out of her hat, and we appreciate that. So thank you for all that you do. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Mr. Dykes.
Thank you, Chairman Gant and County Commissioners. On behalf, my name is Steve Dykes, and I'm Vice President of the Asheville City Schools Foundation. We have several board members with us that you saw just a moment ago. But I, too, as an interested third party and a parent to two young men who have come through the Asheville City Schools, want to say thank you to the Commission and to the staff for all your hard work on this. It will be very meaningful to our children going forward, and that's what it's all about. Over the course of the next several months, we want to keep an open dialogue with you so that we can together figure out the best course of action going forward. So thanks for listening to us, and hopefully your favorable action on the resolution before you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dykes. Any other comment on this? Mr. Rice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Dressed up just for you. I'd like to say that the Asheville City School is long overdue for a nice building, 2 buildings, maybe even more. I certainly know that Buncombe County has well deserved what they got. And one of the things that concerns me is that we have built 2 intermediate schools in Buncombe County, and they wasn't needed, but we spent a lot of money, a lot of current expense money going forward. There's no justification in it, but we got them. The city school system, they deserve what they're going to get. We didn't. We already had our dilapidated dozen, and our population is going down. So I think that they're well deserving of what they're looking at. And somehow, Buncombe County always figures out a way to get money. And I'd say that this is the appropriate thing to do for the kids. 24 years I've advocated for special kids, and I've been into these buildings many, many times. And my concern would be, why have we waited this long to get to this place? And it's kind of like the AB Tech. Where's the plans at? Why haven't they been put up here in the front? So I think my concern would be more appropriate than anything, and that is to say we need more dialogue here at the podium from the school systems over the years and get these things on the front end, not the rear end. because it seems like it's always in election years that these kind of things come up and everybody wants to get on the bandwagon. There's lots of things that need to take place before election years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Any other comment tonight? Well, my comment is you look on this board, you have all educators, except for me, I guess. My mother was a teacher. We've got a moral obligation to provide for these kids. It's the best investment we can make, and this board wants to do it. So this is the first step. Any other comments? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The resolution is adopted 5-0. Thank you. If anybody wants to leave that was with schools, we're welcome to take just 30 seconds as Dr. Green approaches the podium. Thank you, gentlemen and ladies. Okay, Dr. Green.
Okay, I would imagine we have some architects putting them on speed dial for morning. Don't you imagine?
Let's have some more education news.
The second issue tonight is we are asking you to approve an MOU that will authorize the county to act as the agent for the AB tax so that we can conduct, oversee, and manage the construction projects that were authorized with the passage of the quarter-cent sales tax in November of 2011. That tax will begin on April 1st of 2012. The State Board of Community Colleges has delegated construction authority to AB Tech for the Allied Health Building. We expect that authority to also be delegated in April for the rest of the projects with the exception of the sidewalks. The agreement that you have before you tonight defines the roles and responsibilities for planning and construction of these facilities. The programming and the educational needs will be identified by the college. They've been very gracious to have us at the table so that we know what they want to build long run. And as we start the construction, we're able to make sure they get what they want. Section 1 of this agreement clarifies the decisions and the approvals that will require both the Board of Trustees and the Board of Commissioners approval before we can move forward. And these primarily address the selection of the architects, the fees, the contracts are negotiated around that, the award of contracts for construction itself, and the approval of change orders over $50,000. Section 2 of the agreement clarifies the county's role as agent for the college. This addresses construction management. We have a fair amount of experience in construction, and we will be the project managers for these. And then Section 3 clarifies the county's role for financing the projects. As the issuer of the debt, several of these properties will be deeded to the county to serve as collateral for the debt that we will issue, and this debt will then, of course, be paid with the proceeds from the quarter-cent tax. The Board of Trustees have authorized the chair of the Board of AB Tech and the president to sign this MOU, and they're prepared to sign as soon as you approve the agreement. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about it. On the consent agenda, you did approve a budget amendment that includes 3 of the projects, a purchase of 93 Victoria, the classroom building for the public safety training facility, and the Allied Health Building. The planning has begun for those, and we are on our way. There's a critical path that we have to follow to get all the projects done because some new construction has to take place before we can do some of the renovations that were planned. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, but I think we've come to a really good agreement. Mr. Fruin has worked really hard with Mr. Campbell to get something that we can both be held absolutely accountable for, and everybody seems to be fairly happy with the agreement.
All right, any questions for Dr. Green?
I move approval.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Bailey, second by Commissioner Peterson. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The resolution, the memorandum of understanding is adopted 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Next up, we have Ms. Donna Clark going to talk about the Western Highland Area Authority second quarter report. Mrs. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. You have attached to your agenda the Western Highlands Financial Report for the quarter ending December 31st, 2011. Most notably, the budget versus actual report shows a loss of $2.8 million, but the loss was expected and anticipated as over $5.9 million of fund balance was appropriated. So I would like to remind you that the report will look significantly different beginning in January of 2012, which I will report to you at the end of the March quarter, or at the end of March for that quarter. Western Highlands became a 1915 BC waiver site. So the budget will be significantly larger. The cash balance will be larger, as over $10 million was received from the Division of Medical Assistance for the waiver. And accounts payable will increase as well for the accrual of Medicaid services. And of course, the accrual is an estimate, and it's based on October claims, and it will be adjusted as the claims history is accumulated and trends are developed. So if you have any questions, the general statute requires me to present this report, but Ms. Stone probably has all the answers, but one of us will be happy to try and help you.
And I just have one tiny question. So when this all shifts into next quarter, the requirement for reporting is the same. It's just, you're just kind of telling us like it's going to look real different.
It's going to look real different.
But the process for accountability is still intact, right?
It is still
Okay.
intact. Yes.
All right. Any other questions?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Peterson, a second by Vice Chair Stanley to approve the report. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no.
Thank
The
you.
report is adopted 5-0. Next up, we have board appointments. Town of Weaverville Board of Adjustment, there's one vacancy. Are there any nominations?
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Michelle Rapon.
Okay, any other nominations? All those in favor of Ms. Rapon say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. She is appointed. Crime Stoppers Board of Directors, one vacancy.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Joshua O'Neill.
Okay, are there any other nominations? All those in favor of Mr. O'Neill say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. He is appointed. Land Conservation Advisory Board, two vacancies.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Mr. Charlie Ball and Mr. Damon Hearn.
Are there any other nominations? All those in favor of Mr. Ball and Mr. Hearn say aye.
Aye.
They are appointed. Economic Development Coalition, one vacancy.
I'd like to nominate Mr. Chairman Taylor Foss.
Okay, are there any other nominations? All those in favor of Ms. Foss being appointed to the EDC say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Ms. Foss is appointed. Riverfront Development Committee, one vacancy.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Commissioner Carol Peterson.
Okay, Commissioner Peterson's been nominated. Any other nominations?
Take my plate.
All in favor of appointing Commissioner Peterson, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Commissioner Peterson, thank you. That is an important committee, too.
I'm looking forward to it.
Current vacancies, Montreat Board of Adjustment, one vacancy from the ETJ, and the Montreat Planning and Zoning, one vacancy from the ETJ. That's them living right outside the Montreat ETJ, but not within the city of Montreat, but within a mile of the city, of the limits there. All right, the announcements. The next regular board meeting will be held on April 3rd, beginning at 4:30 p.m. And commission meetings can be seen on BC TV, Charter Cable Channel 2, AT&T UVerse Channel 99, live on buncombecounty.org during the meetings, or online anytime at buncombecounty.org. The next matter we have is public comment. The official business of the county has been concluded, and we'll now hold public comment. The time limit for any comment to the board is 3 minutes. If your time expires, then you can leave any question along with your name, address, and phone number, or email with the county manager, and we'll get back with you. Board members are not expected to comment on any matters during public comment. Comments should be limited to subjects that are within the jurisdiction of this commission or pertain to matters upon which we may act. Any individual speaking during public comment shall address the entire board. Any polling of board members is inappropriate. Persons addressing the board are expected to observe the decorum of the chamber and to be respectful to everyone in the room. Any person who willfully interrupts, disrupts, or disturbs the session will be asked to leave the meeting, and our board reserves the right to deny public address on any subject previously presented to the board. We'll need a closed session, I think, afterwards. Is that right, Mr. Frew?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. We have two items pursuant to General Statute 143-318-11A3. The first is under A3, rather. Attorney-client matter regarding potential litigation involving Scenic NC versus North Carolina Department of Transportation. That's a Wake County case, 12 CVS 2793. And we also have a matter under A6, a personnel issue. I anticipate no action from the board other than following through with your direction.
Okay. All right. Those are the rules. Anybody want to be heard on public comment? Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Maddox.
Chairman Gant, commissioners, staff, nice to be here, nice to speak with you. I'm Judy Maddox. I'm chair of the local Sierra Club, and I'm asking respectfully the Buncombe County Commission to please intervene on behalf of Scenic North Carolina regarding SB 183, clear cutting around billboards, state billboards in the department DOT right away. To give you a little bit of update, there was a hearing yesterday in Wake County where the judge heard the outdoor advertising and the Department of North Carolina Department of Transportation request that the Scenic North Carolina suit be dismissed. That was heard and it was taken under advisement. The motion for the Duke Environmental Law on behalf of Scenic North Carolina had requested a continuance that was denied. So the motion was discussed, was heard regarding DOT and outdoor advertising to throw out the Scenic North Carolina. Scenic North Carolina is asking a challenge, a temporary restraining order, and questions of procedure regarding this 183, the question of clear cutting around billboards. I have sent to you, and my apologies, only about an hour or two ago because that's when I received them, write-ups by Representative Chuck McGrady regarding the intended and unintended effects of this law. He sent this to the reporter for the Asheville Citizen-Times. This was February 6, which says clear all, and it explains the impact on Buncombe County and the state. I mean, basically, DOT is estimating that 10 million trees could be cut, roughly 200,000 trees. The second question is a question of state versus local authority, of whether or not the state rules or the local authority ordinances can take precedence. So I want to read to you briefly what Representative McGrady said, which you have in your emails. He said, first, local government ordinances that could prevent such cuttings will not be considered when DOT issues permits for clear cutting, as they formerly were considered under DOT rules. They are not now. The second thing he wrote is there's no longer a prohibition against erecting new billboards behind stands of trees. Companies can erect billboards behind trees and then clear cut the trees 2 years later, as long as such trees are not 4 inches in diameter. The second thing that I filed with you.
Okay, if you can leave those. We'll make sure we have copies distributed to everybody and put that in the record.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll go ahead, Ms. Souther first.
I'm going to change the topic slightly. I'd like to come to you requesting...
Name it where you're from.
Oh, Linda Southard from Candler.
Okay, thank you, Linda.
I'd like to request that you give favorable treatment to the small existing businesses here in Buncombe County, and whenever you do the construction on the AB Tech, where the tax money is going. Basically, I've been listening to these small businesses, and 90% of them are struggling. They're upset that workers that are fulfilling local contracts are coming from Florida and South Carolina. We need to keep our money here in Buncombe County and help our businesses. I used to I have a business, and it was a WeBank business. That was a federal certification for women-owned business, and that they routinely gave favorable treatment to us when we bid on contracts. So I am requesting that on behalf of the small businesses here in Buncombe County, that you do the same for the Buncombe County contracts with AB Tech.
Thank you, Ms. Sally.
Can I say one thing about that, if you don't
Yes,
mind?
ma'am. Dr. Green?
We have on our courthouse used the construction manager at risk approach, and we'll be using that on the AB Tech projects. That's helped us draw about 70% of the business going to local businesses. There are some portions of the project that we don't have a local vendor for, but our real focus with the construction manager at risk process is to make sure we use as many local vendors as possible. So thank you.
Thank you.
I believe for 24 years almost we've been insisting that that happen.
All right. Ms. Roderick?
I'm Susan Roderick, and I'm here to support Judy's good effort. She's done a lot of research on our big concern of the billboard companies being allowed to cut all of our public trees. Just this afternoon, I worked with AB Tech students to just plant about 12 trees, and it took us all afternoon. And that will be a big help to our environment. But just think of the thousands of trees that we would be losing if they were allowed to cut all these trees along our highways. And if we're really concerned about tourism and we're really concerned about the environment, this is our chance to really fight for that environment without too much loss. I can see those billboards just fine. I wish we didn't have any, but we do. And they just want to come in and take over and do way too much. So if you have any clout with them, or you could help support this effort, it would be a big help, and I don't think it'll be too much of a burden on all of us.
Thank you, Ms. Roderick. Yes, sir. Monroe, how are you doing, sir? Mr. Gilmore?
Hi, thank you. I'm Monroe Gilmore. I'm with the Swannanoa Valley Alliance for Beauty and Prosperity, and I think we actually came about over years ago fights about billboards, and we always appreciated what you all did, and we hate to see it undermined with this law. And we hope that you will consider either joining the suit or finding a way for our voice to be there. Your voice has meant a lot in a lot of different fights. When we were trying to stop the clear cutting way back in the late 80s on the watershed, you all really didn't have totally a dog in the fight. It was more the Water Authority then, but your voice, along with the Blue Ridge Parkway and others, helped change the public mood. And some of your individual efforts, even on the state VA nursing home here, it got reversed literally in how they placed it, and now it's a very beautiful entrance. And so standing up, even when it looks pretty daunting, is important, and I hope you will. I just drove in from Black Mountain, and if you remember Lady Bird Johnson's, what's it called, Beautify America, they worked with billboards and moved them closer to urban areas so they wouldn't be all along the rural roads. Well, there's a requirement, and that's why when you come in from Black Mountain, once you get past Swannanoa, they're just like that. They're 650 feet apart. If this thing is implemented as it's written, they could cut 340 feet on either side of those billboards. You could clear cut all the way from Swannanoa into Asheville. It really seems mindless, and it seems like it's a rejection of community values for a very narrow pecuniary interests of people who will give you all kinds of statistics. Back when we had the big fight some years ago, they told us, oh, the people in Vermont, the businesses are clamoring for billboards. They hate their no billboards rule up there. Well, I called the head of the State Chamber of Commerce up there, and he laughed and he said, yeah, that's what they say all over the country. He said, our businesses benefit because we don't have billboards up there because it enhances our brand. And certainly our brand is the beauty of these mountains. And so I hope you all will do whatever you can to send a strong message from the mountains. You all can do it better than any county out here. Thank you.
Thank you, Monroe. Any other public comment? Yes, ma'am. Michelle, Ms. Pace.
Thank you. It's Michelle Pacewood from Candler. First of all, thank you always for all you do here. And I want to thank you especially for the Women's Veterans Day. I'm glad you recognize that one of 14 women veterans is a woman. And, I encourage you to reach out in their community, find our veterans, most of which will be women coming home and doing all we can to funnel them into the programs, like the good programs we have at the VA. So thank you very much. I would like to say on the business front, I know a lot of businesses are struggling right now, so I know we do our best to let them know about projects, and they can't always bid on them. But, anything we can do, and I know that you have that in your plan to use local businesses whenever possible. We are still hearing that on the ground, too. So any opportunities you can have to have our local folks in Buncombe County not have to drive so much, especially with the gas prices, would be helpful. And the last thing is, and I think we had talked about this before, when we're talking about conservation, I encourage you again, I think I've spoken to you all on a few occasions on looking at transfer development rights as a means for conservation without using tax dollars. It's kind of a new program. I think Holly and I had talked about it once before. It's really a great tool if we want to find funds for conservation. Please look at those kinds of strategies instead of using tax dollars if possible. I know we want to conserve land. And then too, carbon credits and those kinds of things at closing, that's a great tool too. A voluntary program can help alleviate some of the inventory that we have on the market that's not green currently. But you can set up ways to get those existing homes to be green without actually being green. So I think there's a lot of different ways we can look at gathering the money for that, and I encourage you to do so. Thanks again for all you do.
Thank you, Ms. Pace. Any other comment? Mr. Brame?
Hi, I'm Ken Brame from Leicester and also representing the Sierra Club. Again, I would like to ask you to seriously consider getting involved with this legal proceedings on billboard cutting. Here in Western North Carolina, we're very dependent on things like tourism, people moving in, new businesses moving in, and one of the advantages we have is the beautiful scenery, the mountains and trees that we have. And most people come into Western North Carolina and Buncombe County through one of our major roads. And the last thing we need to have happen is those to be clear cut, as was pointed out earlier, which can happen under this bill. I know it's been a little confusing about whether or not counties efforts have been, and local ordinance has been superseded by this bill. The original version passed by the State House had a version that protected local control and protected that. Unfortunately, in the conference committee, the Senate version won, and the final version that became law and was passed very quickly with little time for comment did override local ordinances with the state regulations on billboards and cutting trees. So, and that was one of the pleadings in the case yesterday. That was the billboard industry pointing out that they had that right. And so I think this is the opportunity for Buncombe County to join the city of Asheville and get involved and send a clear message that it does have the risk of impacting our local economy and that we need to take a stand and be heard on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Any other public comment? Yes, sir, Mr. Dr. Bird.
Dr. Milton Bird, good afternoon. I've been hearing a lot of volunteer voices out here who have done tremendous amount of work in this community. I've wearing my service prints because I've got 30 years at it, but you know what? I'm going to take my jacket off because I respect these people. I've paid my price as well. But there's something going on here that we have to listen and understand coming from the voice of these people, especially the Sierra Club talking about the clear cutting. there's a local resiliency that needs to be reframed in our political mindset. This is a good example. Clear cutting does not represent our tourism industry having its best value for the mountains. We have a need to rebuild things when it comes to local governments in the framework of public trust. And this is a challenge right here constantly that you guys have to face month after month, year after year, meeting that public trust. I ask you to support the issue when it comes to clear cutting of our signs. We've spent many years creating sign ordinances, but how are they impacting our community and its, well, our community? The issue of public trust, though, is something that has to be looked at, not just Buncombe County. We look at the state. We look at the federal government. And I saw bits and pieces of public trust that's created here by citizens, by the work they do. And you guys do a lot of work making that happen. I want that recognized. At the same time, we can't talk about the mistakes we've made in the past because we've got to get ready with dealing with the future, and we can't wait till election. And things like the lawsuits of dealing with clear cutting and meeting the challenges of state and their bureaucratic coercions, I'll use that directly. We have to reframe our mindset, that where we are empowering the people to create local resiliency, and these are just good examples of how we've got to reframe ourselves politically, socially, and as a committed community. I want this to go forward, not in bitter looking at what the past is, but what can we start building to make a future where we thrive, where we rebuild the public's trust, and we polish the mind of our fellow man right here in our communications, dialogue, back and forth. Even when we don't like the discussion, we work it, because that is American, and that's a value of being human being. To sum it up, let's stop looking back. Let's start building for the future and take on issues like this so we build that local resiliency where it's suitable, sustainable, and supportable, not just by our corporate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Burke. Any other public comment? Yes, sir, in the back. Anybody else that has a comment, just come up and sit in the front. I can't. There's a pole there. I'm kind of
polls
arguing.
tricky.
I'm Herman Langford, a resident of Weaverville, and as far as billboards are concerned, I think they're the worst kind of a roadside litter. I honestly believe if you poll the residents of this county, most of them would get rid of them if they could. Now, I think the reason I'm standing here today is because of the Supreme Court decision, Citizens United. You know, it opened up the floodgates to money. Art Pope bought himself a legislature with attack ads. And what we've had coming out of Raleigh is a power grab. Raleigh telling the municipalities what they can and can't do. I wish we would have the direction of getting rid of billboards. I certainly don't think we need to be clearing away anything for them. So really, and the other issues I've spoken to is our tourism base and all that other things, but there are plenty advertising organs for businesses. You got print, the airways, television, radio, digital media. We don't need billboards. So certainly let's don't clear away for them. And I ask you to stand up for your citizens of this county and oppose this by joining the lawsuit. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Light. Yes, sir, Bernie.
Chairman Gant, County Commissioners and staff, my name is Bernard Arguier. I live in Hawk Creek Valley. I'm speaking to encourage you to join the legal effort to stop the state billboard tree clear-cutting legislation. This legislation basically destroys our scenic mountain views to benefit a small group of special interests whose only desire is to increase their profits at our expense. Instead of the wonderful mountain views that that are the reason that we're here and why our tourism is thriving, this clear-cutting of trees will now leave our mountainsides littered with billboards. The scenic beauty is definitely worth fighting for. I know you have concerns that the state legislature may come after Buncombe County if you join in this legal effort. That legislature may try to overturn the county's current ban on new billboards. Regardless of your decision to join in the opposition against this legislation, the billboard industry is most likely already lobbying against Buncombe County's billboard ban right now, I have no doubt. And the current legislator has already shown that Asheville and Buncombe County are some of their favorite targets. This is evidenced by the legislator's attacks on our county election districts and on the city of Asheville and Buncombe County's water system. Remember that we live here, and visitors come here because of the beauty of this county and its mountains, not because of the billboards that litter the roadways. So I ask you to be committed to this important legal effort to stop the giveaway of our scenic mountain views to a self-serving billboard lobby. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bernie. Any other public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Al Snaffledge, and I'm the chair of the Buncombe County Veterans Council. Did you know we had one? Good. I'd like to invite you, anyone, to come in and sit in with us. Our next meeting is April 12th, 6 p.m. We have a little home-cooked meal for $5, and that's the cheapest deal in town. And then we start a little meeting. I'm trying to reorganize. I'm inviting all veteran organizations to participate in the Buncombe County Veterans Council, and also commend you today for acknowledging Women Veterans History Day. It's a great honor. And we have some 21,000 veterans in Buncombe County. I'd like to see you all come out to the county commission meeting. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Allison.
Don't we've had a Veterans Council for years.
Yes, sir, and they've been sort of inactive.
Well, yeah, I guess Colonel Mulligan died and maybe it lost
No,
it.
Colonel Mulligan's still around, but he's not
Not active.
He comes
any?
to our meetings.
Well, because I was on it years ago, but
Yes, sir. We're trying to get some new blood and young blood in there.
good, very good. Glad to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Any other public comment? Mr. Rice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Addressing this board, you said there would be no interaction between the board and the speakers, and this just happened, so just to bring it to your attention. I agree with the clear cutting. I agree that it shouldn't be done around these billboards, but there's a bigger problem, something nobody's talking about here. Progress Energy. They go out and they trim trees and they cut them, and it looks like somebody with a haircut that's been gouged by a kid that's 8 years old trying to cut daddy's hair. Now, if you talk about a mess, billboards ain't a mess compared to what Progress Energy is doing in the county. They don't even half trim the trees. They just cut a line through them, and it's a pitiful sight. I think you need to look into that. Another issue, AB Tech, GED program has been done away with at AB Tech, according to the news. Is that true? Okay. Well, they said at the Pines there's moving out or something. My concern is dropout prevention. When you look at dropout prevention, the schools make, county schools especially, make you think there's nothing wrong in Buncombe County. The dropout rate is going down and graduation initiative is going up. You'd think that God come down and healed everybody. But that ain't happening. We need jobs in our community, and we need a way to get kids GEDs. We need a more aggressive way to do it. First of all, whether the schools are telling you or not, they'll paint the pretty side to it, but I'm going to paint the dark side. I've worked with kids with special needs for 24 years. I've been into every school in Buncombe County, 7 counties around, and let me tell you, I've seen the worst of worst. I deal with the worst kinds of situations. And these kids that we're talking about, the needs that they need are far greater than what's being provided. The cap in North Carolina is 12.5% on special education. Buncombe County is providing like 13.6 or so additional above the 12.5. Buncombe County providing above that. What I'd like to say is that yins are not touching the surface on the needs. There are more needs than that. Kids are not getting identified. I brought this to the attention of Buncombe County School Board, and I would like for you all to get involved in some way. If you need to put more money in it, put more money in it. But we need a way of getting these kids' needs met. It's not just the low-end kids either. It's the high-end kids has got to have a way to get what they need. And the pretty picture they paint on this graduation initiative is only a pretty picture. It's not the facts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Any other public comment today?
We go into closed session.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Bailey, second by Commissioner Peterson. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. We're in closed session. Thank you. G, thanks. Yeah, thank you.
Hey, how are you?
Thank you.
Yeah, good to see you.
I'll make sure it gets in the record.
Yeah, right. Exactly. See you. Tell you what, if I run for office, I would protest people being